folks, I'll start by sharing my screen immediately. The first session we did about word processing was mainly about word and paragraph formatting. We looked at how to set up styles. We learned how we could actually insert images into words. So it was quite granular. It was down to formatting, down to the individual bits of text level. Today we're going to zoom out a little bit and we're going to look a little bit more deeply at document formatting. So I'm going to open up a new document in Pages. Here's just my generic word processing document over here. You can see it's a blank page waiting to be filled. Now, there are two types of word processing documents that Pages supports. One is a traditional word processing document, and one is a page layout document. Now, the easiest way to differentiate between the two of them, I'm just going to get some boilerplate text here because you didn't come here to watch me type, is if I have text which goes beyond a single page and I paste it into a word processing document, it generates more pages automatically. Whereas a page layout document, if you want to have a new page, you physically have to add a new page, just in the same way as in Keynote. If you want to add a new slide, you choose a new slide. And text doesn't automatically flow from page to page to page. It would be nice in certain circumstances, but it doesn't. So we're going to start off with your word processing document and show you how you can modify and how you can set it up and format it. And then we're going to move over to a page layout. I'm also going to take a slight detour via Microsoft Word to show you one particular instance of a style setting and how it applies in Word, because I'm sure we may have some Word users in here. Okay, so this is my document. I've just pasted in some raw text. It's taken the default style, which is the body style over here, which I think is Helvetica 11 point. Yes, Helvetica 11 point. So let's have a look at some of the things we can do. Now, one of the first things I'd like to do, you can see if I move my cursor up here, I've got my header. And if I go to the bottom of the page, I've got a footer, but it only appears when I drag my cursor into it. So if you want to see these things, you want to see how your page is laid out, one of the things you can do is go to View and choose Show Layout. And now you can actually see the outside margins, the top edge of my text box, if you want to call it a text box, and where my headers and footers apply. And it can be useful in certain circumstances. Now, if I was I want to start to format this document. So one of the things that I can do, and this was added in a couple of months ago, is a lot of us are creating documents these days that don't necessarily get sent to a printed page. They might be saved out as a PDF. So the constraint on ink is not necessarily something that we always have to deal about. We might save it out as an electronic publication. So one of the things we can do here is I can click on the background and go to my document format in my format bar over here and choose section. Now, we can adjust the background of our entire document. We can make a color fill, and I can choose from some predefined colors. I can do a gradient fill, where I can choose ranging from one color to another. You can see it's going from a medium color blue to a darker blue. If I click this little flippy guy, it inverts it. They're advanced image gradient fills, but I want to skip that and I want to go to image fill, because this is something that's only been added recently. You've got some predefined shapes inside here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a document and I'm just going to drag it into that little well. And now I've got, this is a document we worked on with schools on Hans Christian Andersen. And I now have Hans Christian Andersen as a background into my document. Now, if I'd taken another document, let's say this guy, for example, this is beautiful, but in some instances, it's very hard to read the text. That's quite not too bad, but this is quite dark. I could change the text to white. This would be easier to read, but this could be darker to read. So one of the things we can do is we can go to an advanced image fill. And this allows us to have our image in the background, but it also gives us a color overlay. So I can take any color that I want. I can bring up my color picker over here. And I can say, okay, light blue. And now I can start to adjust. You can see the image has disappeared because my opacity is at 100%. But if I start to reduce the opacity, I can start to adjust and almost give it like a duotone effect if I want to play with this. I can darken the image, I can lighten the image. So this is something that we couldn't do until a couple of months ago. We could always do it in page layout view, and it's actually easier to do, but I just wanted to show you this because maybe sometimes you want to have a document that has a very nice background. So let's just use a standard image fill from this point on. A couple of other things that you can do. You can view it as an original size. You can see it was a larger document. I actually chose scale it so it fills the entire document. If I did it to scale to fit, it fits properly, but I've got a little bit of white spot on the top. So we've got quite a lot of things we can do to make this document our own. Okay, so that's my background. Let's have a look at the headers and footers. If I go here and click inside here, it'll say insert page number, and I've got a series of choices. It knows there are 3 pages inside here. I can go 1 of 3, page 1, page 1 of 3, page 1. So I can do that. I can choose these 4, but if I wanted to actually do it myself, I could say, I'm not going to insert page, I'm just going to type page. And then I'm going to, instead of typing 3 dots, you all know the keyboard shortcut for an ellipsis. It's Option semicolon, which is a proper ellipsis. And then I can say, okay, insert a page number. Right? And then I've got my page number. And then I can say of, and then I can say insert page count. And now this footer goes through all of my entire document, and you can see I'm on page 3 of 3. And if I selected all of this, copied it, and paste it again, you can see I now have 6 pages, and this auto numbers and it goes through my entire document, and all is good in the world. So I'm going to stop that over there. Another thing we can do is we can insert a date over here, and this will either stay as the existing date, so I can set it to today, or have it just insert the date as it appeared on the day we created it. And if I wanted it to update it, if I'm editing this document, I can just say, set it to on that particular date. Another new feature that was introduced a couple of days ago, and this really has absolutely no place inside a document that I'm going to print, is we can insert a web view now. So if I go to insert web video, I suppose it makes sense to talk about these before I go there. I'm just making assumptions here. We've got our tables, charts, text, shapes, media, and comments, which is the same across the board for pages, numbers, and Keynote. If you know these, they're all the same. But a new option, and they're all reflected over here as well. But a new option now is to insert a web video. And what this does is it asks me to type in a URL. So I'm going to switch to Safari. And I just happen to have a web page over here from a company we know and love. And I'm going to click share, copy the link. And if I now go back and paste that link in, it loads the web video, validates it. If I now click insert, I now have a YouTube video that I can place into my document. And if I send this out to people as an editable document, they've got this document that they can play with. Okay, so that's just general formatting of my document and some new features. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is formatting our document so that we've got some control over the structure of the document. So over here, I've got chapter 2 of this 3-chapter little bit of text. So somebody might want chapter 2 to start on page 2. So what people sometimes do is they go and hit return, and they hit return, and that's wonderful. All my text is in there. But I'm now going ahead and I want to edit some more text. So once again, let me just take a little bit more text over here. I'm going to take a paragraph, copy it, and paste it. And I'll paste and match style so that the style is exactly the same. And now my text has moved down. And if I go and view my invisibles, those of you who are the first course, you know that you can see the return characters and the spaces and all the characters that conform to things like return characters and so on. It's pushed chapter 2 down. So that's no use to anybody. So I'm going to delete that text that was there, go back to the format of that document. And what I want to do is I want to click at the beginning of the word chapter 2, and now I'm going to insert a page break. And now you can see with all my invisibles turned on that I now have a page break inserted over there. And no matter what I do over here, if I paste some more text in over here, that will always appear on a new page. And if I paste some more, which forces that down to the second page, it will always start on a new page. Let's just paste a little bit more. So there's my text over there. And this will keep filling up until it comes down to here, and that'll force that to be on page 2. So page breaks are a great way of getting your document to format. Now, what if, I'm just going to undo that again. What if we've got our document over here and we want to insert, most books will have an introduction, and sometimes the page numbering is different. We don't want our page, if we had a title page over here, we wouldn't want the title page to be page 1, we would want the first page of text to be page 1. Or if we had an introduction, sometimes a book might have Roman numerals for the introduction and then start the page numbering on the first chapter. So I'm going to take this text and I'm going to bring it to my document, hide others there, and I'm going to insert this over here. And I'm just going to type introduction. I'm not going to spend any time on text formatting over here because we did that in the last one. So instead of inserting a page break, you can see I've now got 4 pages. This is page 1 of 4. I want this to be handled differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format my section. So we're still on the section form for when we did the fill. There is no previous section. This is the first section. And I want my page numbering to be Roman numerals. Let's take those ones so it becomes obvious. And you can see I'm now on page I of IV, or 1 of 4. So I now want my second page to be the real beginning of my document. So instead of inserting a page break, I'm going to insert a section break. And while it looks the same, this icon is slightly different. So now if I click in my second section, I don't want to match the previous section. And equally, I don't want to continue the numbering from the previous section. I want my numbering to start at number 1, and I want my numbering from this section to be 1, 2, and 3. So while that is page 1 of 1, this is now page 1 of 3. So my second section, the numbering is started anew, and I could do this as many times as I want to. So I could have a foreword, I can have an introduction, I could have a different style for my formatting, and the sections have their own character and their own style. For those of you who use Microsoft Word, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to make a new document over here, and once again paste this. And over here we'll go to chapter 2. And once again, I'm going to insert a new style. Now, if you have a look at the ribbon over here, we've got layout, and you can see breaks. And we can insert a page break, a column break. We'll come to columns in a minute. But I'm going to introduce a section break. So insert a section break at the start and start the new section on the next page. So you can see we've got a little indicator here. It's not quite as obvious as Pages as to what it looks like. But this is quite interesting because one of the things that Pages allows you to do is if I go into my page setup and choose landscape format while I'm in that section, you'll see that I can actually change the page orientation of my document for section 2. So if I have a section that's maybe image heavy, or I want some graphics inside there, or some charts and tables, and they lend themselves better to a landscape format, I can set that up. And then I could go, say, this to chapter 3. I can insert another section break and make sure I'm inside section 3, go to page setup and change this back to portrait mode. And so you can see I've got a few pages in landscape and I've got a few pages in portrait mode. So very powerful feature in Microsoft Word. Switch to Pages again. So one of the other things that we can do is we can insert column breaks. So if I was to say select, let's take for these two first paragraphs and highlight them. If I go to format and choose layout, you'll see over here that I have a single column. If I click plus, I can add columns at will, and I can adjust the column widths independently. So at the moment, each one is an equal column width, but if I change that, let's say I make that 2 columns, and I don't want them equal column width. I want to make maybe the first column 10 centimeters, and the second column 6 centimeters. Well, it's done it for me automatically. So as I'm resizing this, maybe I make this one a little bit bigger, make this 11 centimeters. I can adjust my gutter width, so I can design my document really nicely, and it helps if I've got my layout view turned on, so I can see my document. So this works for long form documents, and if I want to have a document that goes across 500 or 600 pages, then this is the way to do it, to use word processing, and you just go into your various sections, you set your column widths, and you flow your text all the way through. Now, what if I wanted to design a document that maybe wasn't that many pages, maybe it was 6 pages, maybe it was 5 pages, it was a brochure, it was a layout, it was a flyer, and I wanted to have a little bit more control over the layout of the document. So I won't save this. I'm going to make a new document, again, a blank one, but I'm going to go to my document and I'm going to turn it into a landscape document. Let's hide you here for a minute. And over here, I can convert this to page layout. Now, have a look over here. In my view menu, when I'm in word processing mode, these are the only options I have available to me. I say only options, there's quite a lot, but when I switch to page layout mode, it says, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Now we can add pages. And if I go to my view menu, I also have the option to edit master pages. So I can go back and create a master layout on the background in exactly the same way that I had I inserted my image previously. So if I was to say, take this sunrise and drag this into my background, I could set this up as a background document. Let's just fill. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there, but if I go to format, this is just a traditional image, and I could edit the exposure, the saturation, I could take the image down, I could play with this, I could set the opacity, I could make it nice and opaque, so I could overlay my text against it. It's a little bit easier to manage this kind of thing in page layout because it kind of expects you to be working perhaps in a slightly more image-rich format. When I'm done, that's my master document. I can create more and more pages that all has this in the background. For the moment, I'm just going to leave it blank. So let's have a look at how I can do things differently. And by the way, the things that I'm going to show you, you can also still do these inside your word processing document. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert a text box. I'm going to take this text box and I'm just going to resize it and make it round about here. And let's lay this document out a little bit. You can see I've still got my headers and footers down there, but I'm going to take a shape. I'm going to just drag this up to the top. I want to lay this out. This is going to be a flyer. Let's make this a gradient fill and have it dark to light. That's nice. I'm going to type some text in there. I'm going to say, my lovely documents. Right, so I've got a text box over here, and I'm going to duplicate that text box just by choosing duplicate selection. I could copy and paste, but I'm just going to do that because I like keyboard commands. And I've got my nice little alignment tools, and select that one and duplicate it again. Now you notice these little handles up at the top. One of the things I can do is I can click this, and that turns this into a linked text box. So you see the number 1 there, I click on here, number 2, number 3. These text boxes are now linked together. So if I go back to my text and select this and paste, you can see how the text flows from one document or from one page to another. And if I say take this out, and I can just make a new text box over here for the moment. Let's put that up there, paste that in, and resize this box. So now I've got a bunch of text boxes, and if I was to add any more text in here, can you see how everything flows through? And down at the bottom here, this plus sign indicates to me that I've actually got more text than is available over here. So let's just pull this back out here. And I'm going to show my thumbnails. Now, what I want to do over here is I want to, again, Command D, I'm going to duplicate that page. And I now have 2 pages in here, but I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to add a new text box. But this time, instead of creating 3 text boxes, I'm going to pull that out so it's half the width of the page. And I'm going to go to my text layout, and I'm going to add 3 columns. So while I can't see it over here, if I choose View Layout, no, it's not showing them at the moment. So if I take this text box now, and I click on this, it's now given me a 4th text box. Right? The numbers have changed. I'm not quite sure why they changed, but if I was to create a new text box, I can now choose which boxes to link with each other. And if I now, once again, because these are flowing through, if I was to add some returns, can you see how everything is linked together? My document flows. So I wouldn't make a 500-page document out like this, but if I wanted to lay something out quite nicely, I could do it this way. Okay, let's have a look at a couple more things that I want to show you, because let me resize this slightly. I'm going to take that sunrise image, and I want to just drag that into my page over here. And I've got a nice little image that I want to add. By the way, Johannesburgers, this is what Cape Town looks like from Newlands Forest at sunrise a week ago. Just saying. And I'm going to add a shape. Right? Let's just make this a circle. Now, this works in word processing mode as well. If we have a shape object and we select and shift select the image in the back, and I go to Format, Image, I can mask it with the selection. And now that image is now contained inside there. If I double click on it, I've got a cropping tool or an image tool, so I can zoom in, I can zoom out. So let's leave it like that. Just click done. And if I move this over here and go to my range menu, I can do text wrap. So now my text will move around it. So I'm starting to do some really nice layout for my document. I've got some images inside there. Okay. Now, one other thing that I can do if I really want to nuance my document is I can add shapes. So say I want a sidebar, and I'm just going to set it right over this chapter, over this section over here. And actually, let's just resize this so it goes down to the bottom of the page. So let's put that down over there. So as you remember from our previous sections, any text box, any image can be a text box. This one is still a text box. If I double click on it, I can start typing. So I'm going to double click in here, and you can probably see my insert bar flashing. No, actually, before I do that, let me just select it, and I'm going to change the style to, let's fill it with, say, bright sunny yellow. And I'll go to my word processor, my text template, and let's just take some text, copy it, double click, paste that in there. The text is white because of the background, but I want to see it in black. So let's go to our style of our text, and let's make our text color deep blue. Okay, so we can see that over here. I've got an image over here that I want to put inside there. So if I just open this guy up, by the way, this is no dig at Microsoft Word, but I have lived through this. I know exactly what this artist means. I'll leave it on screen for a second. You can make up your own mind. I'm going to copy this, and let's go to Pages, and I'm going to select in there, and I'm going to paste. So now I actually have an image inside my sidebar. It's in line with my text, and I can double click on this image. I can give it some drop shadow. I can set up my pages, so I can set up my document so that the sidebar calls out some information that's not part of the other document. And finally, go back to my arrange menu. I'm going to say, okay, here, I want my text wrap to be above and below. And it'll push the content here down into the page, and now I can add a new page and build another text box in terms of my wrapping. Finally, a new feature that they added as well was drop caps. And I could select this text over here, and in my style formatting, can you see where it says drop cap? I can click on drop cap, and I can now have text which automatically wraps. Historically, we had to draw a shape, put the text inside there, and then return text wrap on. But now we can say, okay, how many lines is this going to wrap around? How many characters is it going to be? And we can create extra spacing around the text. We can put a background shape inside there. I can give it a color. I can give it a border. So if I want my text to stand up, let's just change this color to something like that. That's my border, background color. So I can really stylize my document with minimal effort. So I think that's more than enough. I'm going to end my presentation there and switch off screen sharing and hand it over to you guys to see if you have any questions for me. Michael.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan. Fascinating. It's an amazing, versatile program. Two questions. First of all, if I want to, I'm doing a newsletter and I want to put in a link to a video footage, which I've got.
Right.
I need to upload that, I would imagine, to YouTube or somewhere.
Something like that. YouTube, yeah. Vimeo. Yeah. If you want people to be able to access it via online, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys. If you got no more questions, I'm going to go have my lunch.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really lovely having you once again.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks,
and send us examples of your work. We want to see what you do.